You know that feeling when your whole life suddenly feels like it's built on quicksand? That moment when everything you thought was solid and true just crumbles? Yeah, that was me about 8 months ago. One minute I was Samantha Clark, happily making plans for the future with my boyfriend of 4 years, and the next, I was what? The fool? The side piece? The stand-in? I'm still not entirely sure what role I was supposed to play in Daniel Harrison's life. I met Daniel at a gala my company organized for the local animal rescue center. I was darting around making sure every detail was perfect, clipboard in hand, sensible flats already destroying my feet, when he approached me with a glass of white wine and that smile. God, that smile. It's funny how something I used to find so irresistible now makes my stomach turn. "You look like you need this more than I do," he said, offering the wine. I remember thinking he was too handsome to be talking to me, tall with sandy blonde hair that always looked artfully messy, piercing blue eyes, and a jawline straight out of a magazine cover. But he was, and soon we were laughing together in a quiet corner while the event buzzed on around us. By the end of the night, he had my number, and I had butterflies. Our relationship progressed in that wonderfully ordinary way that feels like magic when you're living it. Coffee dates became dinner dates turned into entire weekends together. Then came the drawer at each other's places, the toothbrush left behind, the spare key exchanged. At the 1-year mark, I met his family, the prominent Harrisons, old money with older ties. His father, Richard, ran a massive construction firm. His mother, Victoria, sat on half the city's cultural and charity boards. His younger sister, Chloe, was finishing her master's degree in art history. They welcomed me with what I thought was genuine warmth. Sunday dinners at their stately Georgian-style home became routine. Each Sunday I would dress in my best clothes, my heart fluttering with a mixture of excitement and nerves. I remember watching Daniel talk with his father or tease his sister, feeling an overwhelming sense of pride that this perfect, polished family had accepted me. Every compliment from Richard felt like a golden ticket into a world I never thought I'd belong to. Every time Victoria called me dear or squeezed my hand, it was like confirmation that I was good enough, that I was home. Victoria showed me how to make her famous lemon bars. Richard poured me vintage scotch and asked my opinion on his latest projects. They made me feel like I belonged. "You're practically family," Victoria would say, squeezing my hand across the table. "Samantha fits right in, doesn't she, Richard?" And Richard would nod approvingly, raising his glass. To Samantha, the daughter we never had. 4 years slipped by like that. 4 years of building what I thought was a foundation for our future. Daniel and I talked about marriage, not in definite terms, but in the easy hypotheticals couples share. When we have a house, our kids will have your smile. I fell asleep countless nights wrapped in his arms, believing with every fiber of my being that this was forever. Already picturing the family photos, the shared traditions, the quiet moments of growing old together. I was patient. I knew Daniel was focused on making a name for himself at his father's firm, taking on larger projects, proving his worth beyond the Harrison legacy. What I didn't know, what I never even suspected, was that while I was dreaming of our life together, Daniel was already planning a future with someone else. I found out on a Tuesday. It's strange, the details you remember about the worst day of your life. It was raining, one of those heavy spring downpours that seemed to scrub the world clean. Ironic, really, considering what the day revealed. I'd stopped by the Harrison estate to drop off some documents Daniel had left at my apartment. He was supposed to be at a job site overseeing a new downtown development. But his car wasn't the only thing missing from the driveway. The entire house felt eerily empty. I still had a key. Victoria had insisted I keep one almost 2 years ago for emergencies, she'd said with a wink, or whenever you want to surprise us. I let myself in, planning to leave the documents on Daniel's desk in his old bedroom, which he sometimes used when working late with his father. The house was silent, except for the faint hum of the housekeeper vacuuming upstairs. I headed toward Daniel's room, but as I passed Richard's office, I noticed the door was ajar. Inside, spread across his massive mahogany desk, were what looked like event planning materials. Curiosity got the better of me. After all, the Harrisons were always hosting charity galas, and I often helped with the graphic design. I pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. It took me a moment to process what I was seeing. Seating charts, floral arrangements, menu selections, and at the center of it all, an ornate invitation printed in elegant script. Senator and Mrs. William Prescott request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their daughter, Olivia Grace, to Daniel Richard Harrison, Saturday, the 15th of June, 2025. I remember picking up the invitation with trembling hands, convinced there had to be some mistake. Maybe it was an old invitation from before we met. But the date was just 6 weeks away. Maybe it was a different Daniel Harrison. But then I saw the photo. Daniel, my Daniel, stood with his arms around a stunning brunette woman, both of them beaming at the camera. The photo was recent. He was wearing the watch I had given him for his birthday 3 months ago. My vision tunneled, black spots dancing at the edges as I struggled to breathe. The air felt thick and heavy, every beat of my heart loud and ragged in my ears. My hands started to shake so violently that I almost dropped the invitation. The words on it blurring through a haze of tears. A low, strangled sob escaped my throat before I could stop it, echoing in the cavernous silence of the Harrison estate. I must have made a sound because suddenly Victoria Harrison appeared in the doorway. Her face shifted from surprise to something harder to read. Not guilt, exactly, more like resignation tinged with annoyance. "Samantha," she said, her voice stripped of its usual warmth. "You shouldn't be in here." I turned to face her, the invitation still clutched in my shaking hand. "What is this? Who is Olivia Prescott?" Victoria sighed, as if I were a child asking an exhausting question. "This is exactly why we didn't want you to find out like this. We knew you'd overreact." Overreact? My voice sounded alien to my own ears, high and thin. "Daniel is getting married to someone else in 6 weeks, and I'm overreacting?" She crossed the room and took the invitation firmly from my hands. "Daniel was going to tell you this weekend. We all agreed it would be best to make a clean break now. You're a sweet girl, Samantha. But surely you understood this was never going to be permanent." I stared at her, my brain scrambling to process her words. "What are you talking about? We've been together for 4 years. We've talked about marriage, about children." "Oh, honey." Victoria's smile was pitying now. "Daniel needs to marry someone suitable. The Prescotts are one of the oldest families in the state. Senator Prescott could be our next governor. This match has been in discussion for over a year." "A year?" The room seemed to tilt. "He's been planning this for a year?" "These things take time to arrange properly," she said, her tone calm as if explaining something obvious. "Daniel has always known his responsibilities to this family. Olivia is his future. The appropriate future. You must have realized that." But I hadn't realized, not even for a second, because for 4 years, I'd been living in a completely different reality. One where love mattered more than social standing. One where the Harrisons had welcomed me despite my middle-class background. One where Daniel and I were building a future together. I left the house in a daze, barely hearing Victoria call after me about being reasonable and some mention of a generous arrangement. It was still raining, and I was soaked by the time I reached my car. I sat there in the Harrison driveway, water dripping from my hair onto my phone as I scrolled through the photos of Daniel and me. Looking for what? Some sign that it had all been a lie? Some hint that I should have seen this coming? But all I saw were the memories that had shaped the last 4 years of my life, all apparently built on a foundation of deception so thorough that an entire family had participated in it. I finally drove home through the sheets of rain, my vision blurred as much by tears as by the water streaking the windshield. I needed to talk to someone who would understand, someone who would know exactly how I felt without me having to explain a word. I needed my twin sister. Sophia answered on the first ring, just like she always does when I call. That's the thing about having a twin. Even when you're miles apart, there's this bond that never breaks. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. No hello, no small talk, just straight to concern. I must have been projecting my heartbreak through the phone somehow. "Everything," I managed to choke out before dissolving into tears again. "I'm coming over," she said firmly. "Don't move, don't do anything. Just wait for me." That was Sophia, decisive, fierce, always ready to go to war for me. We might be identical twins on the outside, But somewhere along the way, our personalities split in the womb. Where I had inherited caution and optimism, Sophia got the fire and the take-no-prisoners approach to life. Where I see shades of gray, she sees black and white. And let me tell you, what Daniel and his family had done was planted firmly in her wrong column. But as I waited for her, alone in my apartment, my mind kept replaying every conversation. Every night I'd fallen asleep believing I was loved. Each memory twisted into a knife. I kept thinking, how could I not see it? How did I miss the late-night calls he never explained, the trips he wouldn't let me join, the moments he brushed off questions about our future? The shame felt heavier than the rain-soaked clothes I'd changed out of. Was I really so desperate to believe in us that I ignored every warning sign? She arrived 40 minutes later, hair damp from the storm, a bottle of tequila clutched in one hand, and a determined look in her eyes. I had managed to change out of my soaked clothes and was sitting on my couch, staring blankly at the wall. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by a cold, hollow ache in my chest. "Tell me everything," she said, pouring us each a shot. I hadn't touched tequila since college, but this felt like the right time to revisit old coping mechanisms. So I told her everything, finding the invitation, Victoria's icy dismissal of my 4-year relationship, and the crushing realization that everyone, the entire Harrison family, had always known Daniel was destined to marry Olivia Prescott, not me. Those manipulative, elitist. Sophia seethed when I finished, her voice rising with fury. And Daniel, that spineless two-faced, she launched into a creative string of curses that would have made a sailor blush. "I just don't understand," I said, cutting off her tirade. Why? Why date me for 4 years if he knew he was going to marry someone else? Why introduce me to his family? Why let me believe? My voice cracked, fresh tears threatening. Sophia squeezed my hand. "Because he wanted both," she said simply. "He wanted the carefree, no-pressure relationship with you, someone his parents would never approve of for marriage but were happy to let him date. And he wanted the socially advantageous marriage to the senator's daughter. He thought he could have it all. But 4 years, Sophia, 4 years of my life. Which is exactly why he's not going to get away with this," she said. There was something in her tone that made me look up. Sophia had that look, the one that had gotten us into plenty of trouble growing up, the one that said she wasn't just angry, she was plotting. "What are you thinking?" I asked warily. "I'm thinking," she said, refilling our shot glasses with a glint in her eyes, "that Daniel Harrison and his entire family just picked the wrong twins to mess with." The full extent of the betrayal became clearer when Daniel finally called me the day after I discovered everything. His voice was carefully modulated into what I now recognized as his handling Samantha tone. "I was going to tell you this weekend," he said, as if that somehow made everything okay. "I never meant for you to find out like this." "How exactly did you mean for me to find out?" I asked, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "With a wedding invitation? Or were you just planning to ghost me after 4 years?" "Don't be dramatic, Samantha," he sighed. "I care about you. I always have. But this thing with Olivia, it's been planned for a long time. Our families have known each other forever. It's complicated." "Actually, it's very simple," I countered. "You lied for years." "I didn't lie," he said quickly, and I could practically hear him straightening his shoulders as he prepared his defense. "I just didn't tell you everything. There's a difference. And your parents, were they in on this charade the whole time? All those Sunday dinners? All those you're like family to us moments? Was that all just to keep me happy while you prepared to marry someone else?" There was a pause, just long enough to confirm what I already knew. "My parents did what they thought was best for everyone. They genuinely like you, Samantha. We all do. Just not enough to be honest with me." I shot back. Not enough to respect me as a person who was making life decisions based on what I thought was real. "Look," he said, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I now realized had always been there. "I understand you're upset. Victoria mentioned we might be able to work something out. A sort of continuation after things settle down. Olivia will be busy with her charity work and political obligations, and I'll need—" "Are you seriously suggesting I become your mistress?" I interrupted, incredulous. A wave of nausea crashed over me as his words sank in. my skin prickling with a cold, clammy dread. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, fury rising hot and sharp in my chest, threatening to choke me. How dare he reduce me to an afterthought, a secret, like I was nothing more than a toy he could pick up whenever he wanted. I wouldn't put it like that, he said quickly. More like, we could maintain a connection. Discreetly. I hung up. There was nothing left to say. Later that day, Sophia came back over with her laptop. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with, she said, pulling up social media accounts. Let's see this Olivia person. Olivia Prescott was everything I wasn't. Brunette, polished, from an old money political dynasty. Her Instagram was a carefully curated feed of charity galas, campaign fundraisers, and perfectly framed vacation photos. And there, scattered throughout posts from the last year, was Daniel. Nothing obvious. A group photo here, him in the background there, but enough that anyone paying attention would see the pattern. While I'd been planning weekend getaways with Daniel and posting happy couple photos on my own social media, Olivia had been subtly documenting their real relationship for her followers. More disturbing were the photos we found of the Harrison family at Prescott events. Richard and Victoria smiling alongside Senator Prescott, Daniel's sister Chloe chatting with Olivia's brother at a gala. These weren't new developments. Some of the photos went back years. Even the Harrison family Christmas card from last year made more sense now. I'd been invited to the photo shoot for the first time and had been so touched by the gesture. But looking closer, I realized it had been strategic. I was positioned at the far edge of the group photo, easily cropped out of the version I now discovered had been sent to their more important connections. They were planning this the whole time, I said, sitting back from the computer, my heart pounding. All of them, playing me for a fool while setting up the real relationship. Sophia nodded grimly. And look at this! The Prescott-Harrison Development Project, Sophia said, pointing to a news article announcing a massive real estate partnership between Harrison Enterprises and Prescott Holdings, announced just 3 months ago, a $50 million luxury residential complex. Guess who's the lead on the project? She asked. Daniel, I whispered, the pieces clicking together with sickening clarity. This isn't just about marriage, Samantha, Sophia continued, her eyes hard. This is about business, politics, power. They used you as Daniel's placeholder girlfriend while they negotiated the real deals. The more we uncovered, the angrier I became. This wasn't just a boyfriend cheating. This was a calculated, years-long deception involving dozens of people, all of whom had smiled at me while knowing I was nothing but a pawn. Later that night, after Sophia had gone home, Daniel texted me. Can we talk? I think we can work through this, like adults. Like adults. As if the adult thing to do was to quietly accept being lied to and discarded. I didn't reply. Instead, I scrolled through 4 years' worth of photos and memories, letting the pain and humiliation ignite something new inside me, a determination I hadn't known I possessed. The next morning, I called Sophia. I want to fight back, I said the moment she answered. I don't know how, but I can't let them get away with this. There was a smile in her voice. I was hoping you'd say that. I've already made some calls. Come over for dinner tonight. There are some people I think you should meet. Who? I asked, confused. Our team, she said simply. Because if the Harrisons and Prescotts want to play dirty, they're about to find out they're not the only ones who know how to conspire. Sophia's apartment was already packed when I arrived that evening. I recognized most of the faces. Our cousin Tyler, hunched over a laptop with his usual intense focus. My best friend Zoe, who had distrusted Daniel from day one. Too perfect, she'd always said. Nobody's that perfect without hiding something. Our older brother Liam, and his wife Mia, and a couple of friends from college. Welcome to Operation Wedding Crashers, Sophia announced dramatically, gesturing to a whiteboard she'd set up in her living room. I couldn't help but laugh. A genuine laugh for the first time since discovering Daniel's betrayal. Are we really doing this? I asked, looking around at the determined faces. Damn right we are, Zoe said, pulling me into a fierce hug. Nobody messes with my best friend and gets away with it. Think of it as a family project, Tyler added without looking up from his computer. Exposing liars is practically a public service. Over pizza and beer, Sophia laid out what she'd learned so far. The Harrison Prescott wedding was shaping up to be the social event of the year, with over 300 guests, including politicians, business moguls, and local celebrities. The ceremony and reception would take place at the Westfield Country Club, the most exclusive venue in the state. Security would be tight, with a strict guest list and ID checks. "So how exactly are we supposed to crash it?" I asked, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of what we were planning. "We don't just want to crash it," Sophia said. "We want to expose Daniel and his family for what they really are. Not just to you, but to Olivia, her family, and every single one of their high society friends. And to do that," Tyler chimed in, finally looking up from his screen, "we need to be strategic. Each of us will have a role to play, and we'll need to coordinate perfectly." What followed was the most surreal planning session of my life. My family and friends gathered around a whiteboard, plotting an elaborate scheme to bring down a family that had lied to me for years. It felt like something out of a movie, except it was my life, and the pain fueling it was all too real. This mission was very real. Tyler, it turned out, had been secretly taking cybersecurity courses for the past year. "I can hack into their event management system," he explained calmly. "Get access to their audio-visual setup, security protocols, everything." "Is that legal?" I asked hesitantly. He gave me a flat look. "Is emotionally manipulating someone for 4 years legal?" I didn't have a good answer for that. Zoe, who worked as a professional makeup artist, had already started leveraging her industry contacts. The original makeup artist for the bridal party just got a mysterious offer to work on a movie set that weekend, she said with a sly smile. "I've already submitted my portfolio as a replacement. With my reputation, I'm practically a shoo-in." Liam and Mia, both lawyers, were focusing on the legal aspects. "We need to be careful," Liam cautioned. "Public embarrassment is one thing, but we don't want anyone filing harassment charges against us afterward. What we need," Mia added, "is to stick to verifiable truths. No exaggerations. No accusations we can't prove." Sophia had already created a detailed timeline of Daniel's double life, complete with photos, text messages I'd saved, and social media posts establishing the overlap between his relationship with me and his engagement to Olivia. "The key is coordination," Sophia emphasized. "We need to be stationed at different points around the venue, and we need to act simultaneously. Maximum impact, minimum chance for security to shut us down before we finish." Over the next month, we met regularly to refine the plan. Tyler worked his tech magic, gaining access to the venue's systems and the wedding planner's communications. Zoe secured the makeup artist position, giving her direct access to Olivia and her bridesmaids on the morning of the wedding. Our friends from college practiced their roles as guests, complete with fake identities Tyler had carefully inserted into the digital guest list. Sophia would handle the main distraction at the security entrance, creating a scene to draw attention while the rest of us slipped into position. Liam and Mia would pose as distant relatives of the Prescott family, their legal training making them especially skilled at maintaining convincing cover stories. And me? I'd be at the center of it all, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. As the wedding date approached, we fine-tuned every detail. We had floor plans of the venue, the exact schedule of events, even the seating chart for the ceremony. We knew which entrance Daniel would use, where Olivia would be getting ready, and the exact timing of each family member's arrival. 2 weeks before the wedding, we held a full rehearsal in Sophia's apartment, each person practicing their lines and timing. Tyler tested his control over the venue's audio-visual system using a simulator he'd built. Zoe practiced applying makeup while subtly gathering information, using Sophia as her test subject. The night before our final planning session, I had a moment of doubt. Was this really the right thing to do? Was I becoming as manipulative as the people who had hurt me? I called Sophia and poured my heart out. "Listen," she said after I finished. "There's a fundamental difference here. They deceived you for selfish reasons, to use you while it was convenient, then throw you away when something better came along. We're exposing the truth so Olivia doesn't make a life-altering decision based on lies, and so the other people who do business with the Harrisons know who they're dealing with." But crashing a wedding, it's so dramatic. Sometimes the truth needs a dramatic entrance. Sophia replied, Besides, Daniel brought this on himself. He had 4 years to be honest with you. 4 years to end things cleanly if Olivia was who he really wanted. Instead, he strung you along. She was right, of course. Daniel could have ended things with me at any time. Instead, he had kept our relationship going right up until the last possible moment, extracting every benefit while giving me nothing but false hope in return. "Okay," I said finally, my voice firm. "Let's do this." The night before the wedding, our entire team gathered at Sophia's apartment for final preparations. Tyler handed out earpieces, small, nearly invisible communication devices that would allow us to coordinate throughout the event. Zoe packed her professional makeup kit, adding a few special items she'd need for her role. Liam and Mia reviewed the legal implications one last time, making sure we all understood the boundaries we couldn't cross. Sophia handed me a small flash drive. "All the evidence is here," she said. "Photos, messages, timelines, everything that proves what Daniel and his family did to you. Tyler will handle getting it into their system, but keep this as a backup." I took the drive, feeling the weight of what we were about to do settle heavy on my shoulders. "Do you think it will work?" I asked. Sophia squeezed my hand. "It doesn't matter if it works to stop the wedding or embarrass the Harrisons. What matters is that you get to speak your truth. After being silenced for so long, what happens after that is up to them." We stayed up late, going over every detail one more time. As everyone prepared to leave, making plans to meet at their assigned locations the next day, Sophia pulled me aside. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" she asked, searching my face. "Once we start, there's no turning back." A tremor of fear shivered through me, icy and electric, but underneath it, a fierce determination flared. Every betrayal, every lie replayed in my mind like a montage of heartbreak fueling my resolve. I could almost hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, each thud a reminder that this was my chance to reclaim my voice, and I wasn't going to let it slip away. But even as resolve settled in, a small voice inside me whispered doubts. What if people thought I was jealous, bitter, just trying to ruin a happy day? What if Olivia's family saw me as nothing but a scorned woman desperate for attention? The fear twisted in my gut, cold and sharp. I'd always cared so much about what others thought, too much. But I reminded myself that the truth was worth the risk, that the truth had to matter more than my fear of being misunderstood. I thought about Daniel, about his family, about 4 years of my life spent building something that had been a lie from the very beginning. "I'm ready," I said, feeling a strange calm settle over me. It's time for the truth to have its day. The morning of June 15th dawned clear and sunny, perfect weather for a wedding, or for the carefully orchestrated chaos we were about to unleash. I woke early, my stomach a tight knot of nerves and determination. This was it. The culmination of weeks of planning, of processing betrayal, and channeling it into action. Zoe had left at 5 a.m. to arrive at the Westfield Country Club by 6, when the bridal party was scheduled to begin their preparations. At 6:15, she sent a thumbs-up emoji to our group chat, confirming she was in position. "Bride seems nervous," she texted an hour later. "Not the usual pre-wedding jitters. Something's off." That was interesting. Did Olivia have doubts? Did she know about me, about Daniel's double life? I pushed the questions aside. It didn't matter. Today wasn't about saving Olivia from a bad marriage. It was about the truth. About consequences for actions. By noon, everyone was moving into position. Tyler had set up in a van in the country club parking lot, surrounded by monitors displaying security camera feeds he'd hacked into. Sophia was dressed impeccably in a navy blue dress that made her look like she belonged at any high society wedding, ready to create her distraction at the main entrance. Mia had already checked in as a guest, their fake IDs passing inspection without issue. I waited with Tyler in the van, watching the monitors as guests began to arrive. There were Daniel's parents greeting people with that same polished charm they'd used on me for 4 years, charm that now felt like poison. There was his sister Chloe, looking uncomfortable in her bridesmaid's dress. And then, stepping out of a sleek black car, was Daniel himself. My heart clenched at the sight of him. Even now, with everything I knew, there was a part of me that still responded to him. 4 years of love don't just vanish overnight, even when they should. Daniel looked devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, his dark hair perfectly styled, his smile confident as he greeted guests like the charming heir everyone expected him to be. I wondered if he was thinking of me at all today, if he spared even a moment to consider the life he'd pretended to build with me. "You okay?" Tyler asked, glancing away from his screens. "Yeah," I said, forcing my attention back to our plan. "Just ready for this to be over." At 3:30, with the ceremony scheduled to start at 4, Sophia made her move. Dressed to blend in seamlessly, she approached the main entrance with a purposeful stride, then launched into the performance we'd rehearsed a dozen times. "What do you mean I'm not on the list?" she demanded loudly, her voice carrying across the entrance area. "I'm Olivia's cousin from Seattle. I flew 5,000 miles for this wedding." The security team converged on her, trying to calm the situation without causing a scene. Meanwhile, I slipped in through a service entrance Tyler had identified, using a staff ID card he'd painstakingly replicated. Our college friends, already inside as fake guests, moved toward their designated positions throughout the ceremony space. Zoe's voice came through my earpiece. "Bridal party is moving toward the ceremony area. Olivia looks like she's going to be sick. I'm serious. Something's definitely up with her." "Stay focused," Tyler's calm voice replied. "Everyone in position in 3 minutes." I made my way through the back corridors of the country club, following the path Tyler had mapped out for me. I was dressed conservatively in a simple blush-colored dress, enough to blend in, but not draw attention. My heart pounded so hard I was sure someone could hear it echoing through the marble hallways. This wasn't the calm, professional graphic designer I normally was. This was someone else, someone who'd been pushed past her breaking point. I arrived at my position just as the string quartet began playing. From my vantage point behind a large decorative pillar, I could see the entire ceremony space without being immediately visible. The setting was breathtaking. White roses and hydrangeas everywhere, crystal chandeliers sparkling overhead, and a white carpet leading to an elaborate floral arch where Daniel stood with the officiant and his groomsmen. The guests were seated in rows, a sea of designer dresses and tailored suits. I recognized many faces, friends of the Harrison family who had met me at countless events over the years, who had smiled and chatted with me while knowing I was nothing more than a placeholder. The music changed, signaling the start of the procession. Bridesmaids in pale blue dresses walked down the aisle, followed by an adorable flower girl tossing rose petals. Then came the traditional bridal march, and everyone stood as Olivia appeared on her father's arm. She was stunning, ethereally so, in a custom gown that probably cost more than my car. But Zoe was right. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in her face, the tightness around her eyes, the way her jaw set. She didn't look like the blissfully happy bride she was supposed to be. The ceremony began, the officiant welcoming everyone to this joyous union of two souls destined for each other. I nearly laughed out loud at the irony. If Olivia and Daniel were destined for each other, then what had the last 4 years of my life been? I listened as the officiant spoke about love, commitment, and honesty, each word landing like a cruel joke after what I'd endured. And then, finally, came the moment we'd been waiting for. If anyone can show just cause why this couple cannot lawfully be joined together in matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. Tyler's voice crackled through my earpiece. Now. I stepped out from behind the pillar into the center aisle. "I have cause." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Daniel's head snapped up, his eyes widening with shock the instant he recognized me. I heard Victoria Harrison's audible gasp from the front row. "Oh my God." Before security could react, Liam stood up from his seat. "I have cause as well," he declared. Then Mia from the other side of the aisle, "I also have cause." One by one, our team members rose from various spots throughout the ceremony space, each echoing the same words, 7 people in total, strategically placed so security couldn't remove us all at once. The officiant looked utterly bewildered. Senator Prescott stood up, his face turning crimson. "What is the meaning of this? Security?" But before anyone could move, the large screen set up to display the wedding montage during the reception flickered to life. Tyler's handiwork. On the screens appeared a photo of Daniel and me, dated just 1 month earlier, his arm wrapped around me as we stood in front of the lake house we'd rented for a weekend getaway. "My name is Samantha Clark," I said, my voice steadier than I'd imagined possible. "For 4 years, I've been Daniel Harrison's girlfriend. We lived together. We planned a future together, all while he was apparently engaged to Olivia." As I stepped fully into the center aisle, I felt the weight of every eye in the room. A shiver of terror raced through me, threatening to buckle my knees. This was the moment I dreaded and dreamed of. The moment I would tear the mask from Daniel's perfect facade. But standing there, in the dazzling light of the ceremony, I was also painfully aware that this had once been the setting of my own fantasies, my wedding day, my happy ending. Now, it was a battlefield. Daniel took a step forward, his expression a mix of desperation and anger. "Samantha, this isn't the place." "Actually," Sophia interrupted, having completed her distraction at the entrance and now joining us in the aisle. "This is exactly the place. Because everyone who matters to you is here, Daniel. Everyone you've been lying to." The screens changed to show text messages between Daniel and me, recent ones where he talked about our future together, about trips we'd take in the coming months when he would already be married to Olivia. Olivia turned to Daniel, her face pale as a ghost. "What is this?" "Who is she?" "She's nobody," Victoria Harrison interjected quickly, trying to regain control of the spiraling situation. "Just a disturbed woman Daniel dated briefly, years ago." "4 years isn't briefly, Mrs. Harrison," I countered sharply. "And these messages are from last month. Would you like to see the ones where Daniel discusses the house we were planning to buy together? Or perhaps the ones where he mentions having children?" The screens changed again, displaying a timeline Tyler had created, meticulously showing the overlap between Daniel's relationship with me and his engagement to Olivia. Dates, photos, messages, all undeniable proof he'd been maintaining both relationships simultaneously. "Security, remove these people immediately," Richard Harrison demanded, his face livid. But it was too late. The truth was out, broadcast on massive screens for everyone to see. More importantly, Olivia had seen it. "Is this true?" she asked Daniel, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Have you been with her this entire time?" Daniel hesitated, his eyes darting wildly as he calculated his options. That hesitation was all Olivia needed. "You bastard," she whispered, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Then, louder, her voice breaking with rage, "You complete and utter bastard." She turned to her father. "Did you know about this? About her?" Senator Prescott looked genuinely stunned. "Of course not. I would never." "Actually," Mia said, stepping forward with calm, lawyerly confidence, "we have evidence suggesting the Harrison family was fully aware of Daniel's relationship with Samantha throughout his engagement to your daughter. In fact, they actively participated in maintaining the deception." On cue, the screens shifted to show photos of me at Harrison family events, Sunday dinners, holidays, spanning the entire 4 years of our relationship, directly contradicting Victoria's claim that I was just someone Daniel had dated briefly, long ago. The room erupted into chaos. Olivia's mother rushed to comfort her now sobbing daughter. Senator Prescott turned on Richard Harrison, their faces inches apart as they shouted. Guests began murmuring, pulling out their phones to capture the scandal unfolding live before them. "You've had your scene," Richard Harrison snarled, his voice shaking with fury. Daniel finally spoke, approaching me with cold fury blazing in his eyes. "Are you happy now?" he hissed. "Does ruining my life make you feel better about yours?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt a strange sense of clarity settle over me. "I'm not ruining your life, Daniel," I said evenly. "I'm just showing everyone who you really are. The choices were yours. The lies were yours. This is just the consequence." Security finally reached us, but instead of immediately removing us, they looked to the Prescott family for direction. Senator Prescott, his political instincts clearly kicking in, seemed painfully aware of the optics, of what forcibly dragging us out would look like with dozens of guests recording everything on their phones. "Let them say what they came to say," he said tightly. "Then they can leave." With that permission, Sophia stepped forward, addressing the stunned crowd directly. "For 4 years, my sister was in a relationship with Daniel Harrison," she began, her voice ringing clear across the silent ceremony space. She was invited into the Harrison home, included in family events, led to believe she had a future with their son, all while they were planning this wedding, using her as a convenient placeholder until Daniel was ready to make the appropriate match. We're here today, not just for Samantha, but because we believe Olivia Prescott deserves to know the truth. The truth about the man she was about to marry. Olivia had composed herself somewhat, though tears still streaked her makeup. She stepped forward, away from her mother's comforting embrace. "Did you love her?" she asked Daniel directly, her voice raw. He hesitated, his eyes darting around the room, caught in a web of lies too tangled to escape. "Did you love her?" Olivia repeated, her voice breaking. "It's complicated," he finally said, possibly the worst answer he could have given. Olivia nodded slowly, then removed her engagement ring and placed it carefully on the podium beside the officiant. "No, it's actually very simple," she said firmly. "The wedding is off." She turned to the shocked guests. "I apologize for the inconvenience. Please enjoy the reception, the food and drinks. God knows it's all been paid for." Then, with remarkable composure, she walked back down the aisle alone, her mother hurrying after her. Senator Prescott approached the Harrisons, his voice low, but carrying through the now silent ceremony space. "The development deal is canceled," he said icily. "And if you or your son come anywhere near my daughter again, I will destroy your company and your reputation so thoroughly that the name Harrison will be synonymous with fraud in this state. Do I make myself clear?" Richard Harrison, for once, had nothing to say. At Senator Prescott's instruction, security finally escorted us out, gently, not roughly. I glanced back one last time. Daniel stood alone at the altar, his perfect world collapsing around him. For a brief moment our eyes met, and I saw something there I'd never seen before. Fear. Not of me, but of the uncertain future he now faced. One without the Prescott connection, potentially without his family's support, and certainly without the carefully curated image he'd so ruthlessly maintained. Outside, in the warm June sunshine, my family and friends gathered around me. "Are you okay?" Sophia asked, squeezing my hand. I considered the question carefully. Was I okay? No, not yet. But I would be. "I think I just need to get out of here," I said. As we walked away from the Westfield Country Club, leaving behind the wreckage of Daniel Harrison's perfect wedding day, I felt something unexpected. Not the satisfaction of revenge, but the weightlessness of truth. Finally spoken aloud. It's been 8 months since that day at Westfield Country Club. What the local gossip columns dramatically dubbed the wedding crasher scandal. Sometimes it feels like it happened to someone else, like I'm watching a movie about a woman who shares my name, but isn't quite me. The immediate aftermath was intense. Videos from the wedding went viral locally, with grainy cell phone footage showing snippets of the confrontation. Local news picked up the story, though the Prescotts and Harrisons used their considerable influence to tamp down coverage. Still, in our community, it became the scandal of the year. Daniel tried to contact me repeatedly in the weeks that followed. First came the angry messages. How dare I humiliate him? Daniel demanded in his messages. I'd ruined everything. I was selfish and vindictive. Then came the excuses. He'd been trapped by family expectations. He'd never meant to hurt me. It was all a terrible misunderstanding. Finally, when those approaches failed, he resorted to nostalgia and regret, remembering our good times, suggesting that maybe now, with his engagement off, we could be together properly. I didn't respond to any of it. There was nothing left to say. The professional fallout for the Harrison family was substantial. Senator Prescott made good on his threat, pulling out of their joint development project and taking several other investors with him. Harrison Enterprises lost millions in projected revenue. Richard Harrison's reputation in business circles took a major hit. No one wanted to partner with someone who raised a son capable of such calculated deception. As for Daniel, he left town about 3 months after the wedding. That wasn't. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he took a job with a smaller development company in Cleveland, a significant step down from the executive role he'd held at his father's firm. Whether he left by choice or was pushed out by his humiliated family, I never found out. Olivia Prescott reached out to me about a month after the incident. We met for coffee at a quiet cafe outside the city, away from curious eyes. I was nervous. Would she blame me for the public spectacle? But she surprised me. "I wanted to thank you," she said after we'd settled with our drinks. "Not for how you did it, maybe, but for making sure I found out the truth." She explained that she'd had doubts about Daniel for months. Things that didn't add up, times he couldn't be reached, inconsistencies in his stories. But whenever she questioned him, he'd made her feel paranoid, overly suspicious. "I was starting to think I was losing my mind," she admitted. "My parents loved him so much, everyone thought he was perfect, so I figured the problem must be me." "I know exactly how that feels," I told her. And I did. Daniel had a way of making you doubt your own perceptions when they didn't align with the version of reality he was selling. Olivia and I weren't destined to become friends. Our worlds were too different, and the circumstances of our meeting too painful. But we parted with mutual respect and an odd sort of solidarity. Two women who had narrowly escaped the same fate. As for me, I couldn't stay in Chicago. There were too many memories, too many whispers, too many places Daniel and I had been together. 3 months after the wedding fiasco, I accepted a job offer in Denver, a senior graphic design position at a marketing firm. It was a significant step up from my previous role. Sophia was devastated when I told her I was moving. We'd never lived more than 20 minutes apart our entire lives. "I understand why you need to go," she said softly, helping me pack up my apartment. "But God, I'm gonna miss you." "You can visit anytime," I promised. "And maybe someday I'll be ready to come back." But we both knew that was unlikely. Some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt, and my bridges in Chicago had been spectacularly incinerated. Denver has been good for me. New city, new job, new apartment with no memories of Daniel lurking in the corners. I've made friends, joined a hiking club, even gone on a few dates, though I'm taking things very slowly in that department. Trust doesn't come easily to me anymore. Tyler visits often. He's actually interviewing for cybersecurity positions in Denver next week. Zoe came out for a ski weekend in January. Sophia flies in at least once a month, and we video chat almost daily. My family, my real family. The people who stood by me when it mattered most remain a constant in my life. Last week, an envelope arrived with a Connecticut postmark. Inside was a check for a substantial amount, and a handwritten note from Victoria Harrison. "For the pain our family caused you. No strings attached." I tore up the check and mailed the shredded pieces back. Some things can't be paid for. Do I regret what we did that day at the wedding? Sometimes I wonder if there could have been a less public way to expose the truth. But then I remember 4 years of lies, of being treated as disposable, of an entire family conspiring to use me as a convenient distraction for their son. And I remember Olivia's face when she realized she was about to marry a man capable of such calculated deceit. No, I don't regret it. The truth deserved its moment in the light, no matter how uncomfortable it made everyone involved. Yesterday, I was hiking one of the trails near my new home, watching the sunset over the mountains, when my phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "You won't believe this. Daniel is engaged again. Some banker's daughter from Cleveland. He works fast." I looked out at the vast landscape before me, miles of wilderness, peaks and valleys, a world so much bigger than the small-town drama I'd left behind, and realized something surprising. I didn't care. Not in the way where you pretend not to care but secretly still do. I genuinely, completely didn't care what Daniel Harrison did anymore. I texted back, "I hope she's smarter than we were." Then I put my phone away and continued my hike, breathing in the clean mountain air, feeling the space around me. Space to heal, space to grow, space to become whoever I wanted to be next. The sun was setting on one day, but tomorrow would bring another. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see what it might hold. Dear friend, sometimes life's cruelties aren't meant to break us, but to reveal to us who we truly are and who we deserve to become. The Stoics taught that we cannot control what others do to us, only how we choose to respond. And choosing to face the truth, no matter how painful, is the bravest thing we can ever do for ourselves. If you've ever felt like the world was pulling the ground from under your feet, remember, you are stronger than every betrayal, wiser than every lie, and worthy of every new beginning. You are not defined by what others did to you, but by what you rise to do next. If this story touched you or gave you strength, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel so more friends like you can find hope, healing, and courage. Thank you for being here.